When I was first thinking about fighting for reasonable accommodation, I looked around for other NASA employees who had fought that battle before. I wanted to ask them if they would do it again. I found 3 people that would talk to me, and each of those fought a different kind of discrimination. Now, all 3 of them settled, so they couldn't share the details of their cases with me, but they all told me that if they had it to do over, they'd do it again, which encouraged me. One of those people changed the game for employees who want to pursue discrimination claims but can't afford to pay an attorney out of pocket and can't find one on pro bono, which is most of us. Her name was Eskey, and she was a webmaster at Ames Research Center in California. Her case was for age discrimination, and it came out of one of NASA's plans to replace tenured civil servants with new college graduates, fresh outs. Now, unofficially, and therefore allegedly, I heard some pretty ugly reasons that NASA was making that shift. Of course, fresh outs cost less money, so more minions for the same budget. And not only that, but civil servants on career appointments were fairly well protected at that time. They could hire fresh outs with conditional appointments, which made them easier to fire, and therefore easier to control. Officially, NASA said that fresh outs were more current on the latest tech. And that's how Megan, being a webmaster in her 40s, found herself a target of age discrimination. It started with her boss calling her out for small things, like not asking permission for things that had never required permission before. Megan eventually filed a claim for age discrimination, and after that, the punishments escalated even more, and eventually she got fired. As a NASA webmaster, Megan Eskey was no slouch. She was a big part of building NASA's web presence in the first place. When she got fired, Megan set out to use her supposedly outdated webmaster skills to raise awareness about her discrimination claim. And in parallel, she crowdsourced her legal fees. Crowdsourcing is a big thing now, but at the time it wasn't. Her fundraiser page gave an overview of her story and asked for help paying her legal fees and living expenses while she pursued a wrongful termination suit against NASA. She raised close to $4,000 the first month. And when she had raised about $35,000, NASA decided to settle with her. Megan told NextGov that her idea for crowdsourcing came to her when she realized that managers always got free attorneys in discrimination cases and employees didn't. She said she wanted to level the playing field. Nowadays, a lot of employees use crowdsourcing to cover their legal fees through sites like Kickstarter and GoFundMe. If you're thinking about going this route, it's best to do your own research and pick a site that suits your needs. Once you've chosen a platform, it's time to get started. And the first step is writing your story. I didn't crowdfund my legal fees, but I have written my story a number of times in a number of different forums. Overall, I've found that it's good to say as little as possible and still get your point across. And you want to focus on telling your story in a way that connects with people and convinces them to join you in your fight. And be careful not to defame your employer or tip your hand to them. I've found that 3 things always turn people off: self-pity, anger, and too much detail. Everybody loves an underdog, but not so much a victim. Unfortunately, in this fight, we all start out as victims. But instead of staying there, we decided to pick ourselves up and fight. That's the space you want to write from. Anger? That's just hard to be around. Whenever someone is angry, even if they're not angry at us, we feel it in our bodies, and our immediate impulse is to get away as quickly as possible. Not helpful when you want to connect to people. Now let's talk a little about the appropriate level of detail. Because of my disability, I had some toileting issues, and NASA refused to accommodate me on them. What happened to me as a result was so bad that EEOC gave me a maximum award. Most of you can probably fill in the blanks from there. I'm not ashamed of anything that I went through, but I do realize that my story is probably hard for a lot of people to hear, so I try to be considerate of my listeners. And that's a really good idea if you're fundraising. And once you've set up your fundraising page and posted your story, you can start building awareness and attracting contributors. Of course, social media is going to be very helpful in that respect. But don't forget about creating some local opportunities too, like putting up flyers or giving talks in schools, churches, or civic groups. Where I live, a lot of activism starts at the public library. The bulletin boards are full of invitations to grassroots events. When you're going out to these events, you always want to have an elevator pitch ready. You want to talk to people like you're talking to a coworker or a social acquaintance. Fundraising isn't the same thing as selling something. You want to connect with people who might care about your cause. And once there's a connection, they may be curious enough to check out your main fundraiser page. At first, it's probably going to feel uncomfortable, and it may take some time to build those first few connections, but it gets easier with practice. And let's face it, nothing about the EEOC process is comfortable anyway. If getting help with your legal fees can help you stop worrying and start having confidence in the future again, then maybe it's worth suffering through a few uncomfortable moments. If nothing else, along the way, you're going to meet some people who care and maybe have some fun. Fight smart, hang in to win.